Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Caitlin and this is my first video. So fun. In the last 2 years, have started doing things that I have sworn I've hated. Reading, just one of them. Yeah, I just gave it a try to see what I would think, and baking was one of those things, and I love baking now. I bake all the time, and reading was one of those things, and now I read a lot. Not all the time. There's people that make me look like I don't read at all because they read so fast. So I thought I would share some of my favorite romance / rom-com books. I do like some lightheartedness, some comedy, some dry sarcasm in books. And so I thought I would share some of my books that I've read, some that I've loved, some that I wasn't so crazy about. So let's dive into it. All right, first book is Katherine Center, The Bodyguard. Oh my gosh, am I having a stroke? This is my first Katherine Center book of The Bodyguard. I really, really loved it. The premise is, I should know these names. This is going to be rough because I never remember names. Hannah, as you see here, she is a bodyguard, and she is recently broken up with, a little distraught, and she gets moved to be the bodyguard of this celebrity, Jack. And so her job is to protect Jack at all costs and be the bodyguard. So hijinks ensue, and you can kind of guess where it's going to go. I think I gave it a 4-star on my Goodreads, maybe a 3.5. I thought it was fun. I love her reading. It's easy to read. Very much was picturing the scenes in my head, and I enjoyed it. Overall, it was a good read. So much so that I decided to read another one of her books. Katherine Centered, Hello Stranger. I loved this book. I loved this more than The Bodyguard. It's a really unique premise of this woman, and her name is, geez, I should have notes. Her name is Sadie, and some freak medical condition happens where she actually is blind. I think, if I remember correctly, she can still kind of see some things, but faces, she like can't make out any faces. And so it was just a really unique, complex thing, but is also a real medical condition. I think Katherine Centered writes about that at the very end of the book, explaining that this is like actually a real thing that can happen to people, which I was not aware of. And not being blind, as soon as I said that, okay, I know people can be blind. I am digging my own grave right now. I just mean I didn't know there was this medical thing that could cause temporary blindness. I'm going to stop talking. She's also an artist, and so how can she paint these portraits, which she's really good at, when she can't even see, and like put together faces? And so she ends up meeting one of her neighbors, who is, all right guys, I don't remember his name, and it's not in the back of the book, so you know I'm really screwed. I just saw a Joe in here. Maybe it's Joe. I don't know. She meets a dude. It's one of her neighbors. Gave this a 4.5. I did like it more than The Bodyguard. It was a very heartwarming, unique story, and for that reason, I really enjoyed it. All right, moving on to Lynn Painter. I have heard a lot of good things about Lynn Painter, and I ended up getting Better Than the Movies. I was a little hesitant at first because this is a young adult, and I was like, do I want to read about teenagers falling in love? I don't know. Being a teenager is rough, and I don't know if I want to go back to that life. But alas, I did, and I'm so thankful I did. This is a 5-star read for me. I loved Better Than the Movies. And I also think even if you're an adult, there's so many movie references that you will understand and relate to. And so I feel like, really, if doesn't matter your age, I feel like you could connect to this book. It's really sweet and pure and wholesome. It has the trope of enemies to lovers, which I have learned I am a sucker for. I love an enemies to lovers. I don't care if I see it coming. I want you to hate each other and then realize you were wrong. That's exactly what this is. And I love this book. 5 stars. You need to read it. Moving on, another Lynn Painter. This is an adult romance. And so the premise of this book is very fun. It's this guy, and his job is to help break up your marriage because, you know, let's say the bride is scared to call it off because of the rich family dynamic, or suspects there's cheating, or I don't know, a plethora of reasons. And his job is to break up those weddings. And so he ends up breaking up Sophie's wedding. And Sophie decides to kind of get in the game with him and work together. And as they're breaking up these weddings, they're also hanging out a lot. And you know what that means. The writing of Lynn Painter is great. I do really enjoy her writing. I have realized I'm not a spicy gal. And I know that's a hot take because I know that a lot of people read romance for the spice. It's not for me. It takes me out of a book. It takes me, I can only just read about uh people's body parts in an intimate way for so long until I don't know, doesn't do it for me. So, that being said, this book, what lacked for me is they get hot and heavy quick in this book. And there's not enough evidence for me to be cheering them to be together. There's not enough backstory of them, of wanting to have them be together. And so this one was a little bit of a flop for me, but that's for me. It could be for you. If you don't mind spice, this might not be a bad book for you. I like a touch of spice. I don't need I don't need it like weaved constantly throughout the book. Hey, do me a favor while we're here. Why don't you just like click a like button because that helps me out. It's free for you. We love free things. And also subscribe because I want you to be in this little world with me. All right, next book is Sarah Adams, Practice Makes Perfect. I have found that Sarah Adams is definitely one of my favorite romance writers. She is a very low spice writer, and I feel like her spice, when she uses it, it's at a tasteful time, it's tastefully written, and I enjoy that about her. I loved it, gave it 5 stars, but I know for some people this was a little too light for them, a little too like up in the clouds for them, which I get. I do think there is backstory of these two main characters. The female character is kind of put in this bubble of just being Miss Perfect, and nobody expects her to like take risks or make bold moves or things like that. And so she's kind of wrestling with being placed in this perfect bubble to the point where people think that she's not even worth the type of this gentleman that she meets. So anyway, all that to say, I really enjoyed this book. It was my first Sarah Adams book, and I was like, I want to read more of her stuff. I didn't realize this was in a series. You don't necessarily have to read them in order. Like I read this book not even knowing it was in a series, and I read it totally fine. But there is When in Rome. Why do I keep dropping my books? There is When in Rome, and this one takes place before Practice Makes Perfect. I have not read this one yet, so I have no review on this, but this is the book before Practice Makes Perfect. Just letting you know in case, you do like to go in order. The next one I read was The Cheat Sheet by Sarah Adams. And so this is a fun sports read. Not that I'm a super sporty gal, but this is about someone who is a ballerina, a dancer, and a football player, and just how they come to be. Again, I really enjoyed this book because I just feel like she gave so much context to these two people as individuals, as separate people, and as to why we want them together. And so I feel like she just does a really great job at that. So I loved this book. I did pick up the rule book, which is following the cheat sheet. I have not read the rule book yet. I'm a little nervous because I heard that this one is maybe spicy, and I haven't read a Sarah Adams book yet that has a ton of spice. So I don't know if it's a ton of spice, if it's just a little bit. I'm not sure. But anyway, so I haven't read this yet. I will be interested to see what I think of that one. Okay, next. This one's not as fun to look at because I have the habit of taking sleeves off books. But this is The Paradise Problem by Christina Lauren. I read this over the summer last year, and I loved this book. The premise is a little complicated. I just can't remember people's names in these books. After I read them, I remember the premise, but their names have left. So in this book, your two main characters are Anna and Liam, and it's a little bit of a wonky start. They actually legally get married to help each other with certain things, to like get benefits, and then under the premise that they're going to get divorced. And so that's in like chapter 1. That's all explained. And then I think like chapter 2 is like a few years later, or, 5 years later, something like that. Liam comes back to Anna and is like, hey, actually, we can't get divorced officially yet because my grandfather wrote this like stipulation in his will that if I get divorced in a certain time period, then I'm not going to get my inheritance, which is a lot because he comes from a really rich family that I believe owns like a really popular grocery store chain. So they have to still legally be married, and Anna has to go with Liam to a wedding, his sister's wedding. And so they have to pretend that they actually really love each other and they want to be married, so that everybody buys it and Liam can get his money, and he's willing to even give Anna a cut of that money as well for helping him out. I really loved the complexity of the family dynamic. Anna's family is, for the most part, like put together. It's more Liam's side of the family, this rich family that is very dysfunctional, a lot of narcissism, just really complex. And how that brings Liam and Anna together, I found to be so beautiful. There is some spice in this book, and the spice gets a little detailed. But it doesn't go on too extensively. So to me, it was like maybe a little bit more spice than I would like, but there was so much of this complexity between these two people that I was like, I need them to end up together. It has to happen. So I gave this a 4.5 star. Okay, my last 3 books. I have only my sleeve, the jacket to the book, because I lent this book to somebody. Happy Place by Emily Henry. It's Harriet and Wynne. They used to be together. They're broken up, but they have to go on this like couples trip with their friends. And so it's just kind of all about that story and them trying to heal from the issues that they had and everything like that. I think that this got hyped up so much to me that when I read it, I actually kind of felt let down. I thought it was fine, but I never want to rave about this book. It's not a book that I'm like running to talk to people about. And so for me, it did just kind of fall flat. Please don't destroy me for saying that, because I know Emily Henry is so loved and I will still read some of her other books. But this one, I thought it was good, but I have other books that I loved so much more. And so I gave this a 3-star. But again, I know people love, 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 love Emily Henry and love this book. So I'm sorry. Now to my ultimate favorite romance author, Abby Jimenez. Just for the summer, again, I only have the sleeve because I have somebody borrowing this book right now. This book is about 2 characters, Emma and Justin. And this just scratches that itch for me of learning about people's dynamics, their life stories, their backgrounds. Abby Jimenez also deals a lot with like mental illness. There's just like always some kind of layer there, or there's always like a family dynamic, like a broken family dynamic. And I just love her books. She uses a little bit of spice, but again, it's always typically towards like the end of the book. It's brief, like it's the right amount for me. I took this on our beach vacation last year and I finished this in 2 days, which I know for some of you are like, I read like a book in a day, no problem. Great. I have 2 small kids. That's hard to do. So the fact that I could actually read this in 2 days is kind of wild. I just couldn't put it down. I had to keep reading it. I loved, loved, loved this book. 5 stars. And my last book for this video is Abby Jimenez, Yours Truly. This is the first book that I read of last year as I started my journey trying to be a reader. And this book will just forever have my heart. I loved this book so much. I need this book to be a movie because I need to see it on screen. So much of this book I adored. So the 2 main characters are both doctors, Brianna and Jacob, I believe. And Brianna is trying to get this like head position at her job at the hospital she works at. And at first they're like, yeah, maybe it will be you. And then her boss is like, well, I just also want to weigh other options, just, because. And so they bring Jacob in. And so Brianna at first is like, I'm not into this guy. He's trying to steal my job. What a jerk. And slowly you realize how endearing and sweet and kind Jacob is, and how much that softens Brianna in the best way because she has had some past hurts. They have this exchange where they write each other love notes throughout the whole book, and I just loved this book so much, so much. I stand by this book 1,000%. It is 5-star. You cannot tell me otherwise. And it is the first book that I have read that I actually could see myself going back and reading it again. Typically, I'm not somebody that's going to read a book and then reread it. But this book, I plan on reading again. I just want to wait because I savored this so much. And so maybe in a year or two, I'll go back and reread this again to just get into this world. But I very, very much enjoyed this book. And this book, and Just for the Summer, is a part of a series called Part of Your World. Part of Your World is the first book. Yours truly is the second. Just for the Summer is third. I have not read Part of Your World because, again, I just start books and I don't realize they're in series. And this is, again, one of those series where you don't have to read them in order. Again, I read Yours truly as a one-off and, didn't realize I was missing any context. So, great book. Those are some of the romance rom-com books that I have loved last year as a new baby reader. I would love to hear some of your suggestions in the comments below. You can also tell me which ones you liked that I listed or didn't like, but so help me if it's yours truly, you have no weight in your opinion because you cannot tell me otherwise. Anyway, that being said, thanks so much for watching. I upload on every Tuesday, so feel free to come back and see what we got for next time. Goodbye.